Hello art friends, today we're going to be making summer windows inspired by the art of Henry Matisse and his painting Open Window. We're going to be using a variety of art materials, so let's find out which art supplies you need and let's get started. These are the supplies that you need in order to create your Henry Matisse inspired summer window. You need white paper and you need the size 12 by 18 so that you can fold the paper in order to create the window itself and the shutters. You need a pencil to do your sketching. You need a black Sharpie marker to do outlining, and if you don't have a black Sharpie marker, you can use any black permanent marker. You need a ruler, and the ruler is just so that we can make some straight edges. If you don't have a ruler available to you at home, you can use something like the edge of some cardboard or a book just to create that straight edge. For the coloring part, you need oil pastels or crayons, and we're going to use that in combination with watercolor paint. So this project is what we call a mixed media project, meaning that we're using different art materials and different techniques all in one project. So we're going to have the combination of oil pastels and watercolor paint. You need scissors, and you also need assorted green paper. The assorted green paper is to create the vines that go around the window. So in Matisse's painting, he had some green vines that were around the window, but we're going to create those out of colored construction paper. So if you have green or an assortment of green paper, that would be great. And then you need a glue stick in order to attach the green paper cutouts onto your paper. So gather up your art materials and let's get started. Our first step is creating our paper so that it looks like a window that opens and closes. These kind of look like shutters, but windows in a lot of places in France and Europe have windows that actually open almost like doors, and that's the type of window we're going to create for our project. So what we need to do is we need to fold the paper so that it looks that way. Now you don't need a ruler, but if you want to be precise, you're going to try to fold to about 9 inches. So the length of the paper this way is 18 inches. So if you want to mark a little dot on there, but what I usually do is I just kind of guesstimate. What we have to do is take each side and fold it towards the center. So again, if you want to make that little dot on your paper so that you know where to fold to, that might be helpful. So you're going to take the one side, fold in, and just give it a little crease. And same thing on the side, fold it in and give it a little crease. And then what I do is once I have it folded, then I go back and I just press a little bit more just to get it really folded. And now we have our window with the open sides. So our next part is sketching out some of the designs around the window. You need your pencil and you need your ruler to make some of the straight edges. So don't worry about measurement. You're just going to use your ruler just to create those straight edges. And what you're going to do is you're going to start at the top and you're just going to come down a little bit. This is the top part of our frame of the window. So you're going to go straight across very lightly because these are going to get outlined with the black Sharpie, so you don't need to press too hard, very, very lightly. So that's the top part of our window. And then you're going to bring your ruler over to the side. So here's our folded piece, and we're designing in here. So you're going to come down with this line. Again, we're just using the ruler for that nice straight edge. Now don't go all the way down because we have to make the bottom of the window, which is the window sill. Okay, and then on this side, same thing, come down. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to close that up. So you're going to put your ruler down here towards the bottom and go straight across. So you have your window, and this is the frame that goes all the way around. Don't worry if you have, like what I have, I went over my line a little bit here and just erase that. one thing that I really love about Matisse's work is not only is it full of color, but he didn't get so concerned with things being realistic looking. It was more about the expression and the color. And if you look at his window, they're not the same size. The windows don't match up, and that's something that you don't have to be concerned with when you do this. So our next part is creating the bottom part of the windowsill. So you're going to still have your ruler and your pencil. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a diagonal line. It's going to go from this corner of the window down to that little corner edge of where the paper gets folded. If you even want to put a little dot there so that you know where to connect it, that might be helpful. So take your ruler, match up that corner to the little dot. And again, just a light line so it's going to get outlined. Same thing on this side. We're going to go from this corner down to where it gets folded. So I'm just going to put a little dot there. Take my ruler, match that up, and again, a diagonal line. So now we have our window frame and our windowsill. Our next part of this project is creating the flower pot that sits on the windowsill. Now, in my sample, I put mine off to the left, but it doesn't really matter where you put yours. You can put it in the center or even over to the right. You have to decide. But our pot is going to be sitting on the windowsill, so some part of this line over here is going to eventually get erased. So to start with, you're going to create an oval. So again, decide where you want it to be. I think I'll place mine here. Again, sketch really light. And then you're going to come down with 2 lines. And you're going to attach those 2 lines with a curved line. Almost like a smiley face. So this is the top part of our flower pot. So it's in front of this line, so this line right here needs to get erased. So just take your eraser and erase that. Now when we bring our lines down for the flower pot, we're going to have them go in just slightly. So you're going to come down with your line here, and then your other line on this side. And again, same thing, you're going to attach the 2 on the bottom with another curved line. Again, nice and light because eventually everything is going to get outlined. The next part is adding flowers and leaves to the flower pot. So if you know how to make your own, you can definitely create your style of flowers and leaves, or you can follow along with me. So first I'm going to start with placing a flower here, and it's going to sort of look like a rose. So what I do is I create a little circle, and then I just go around kind of with these half circles. I just keep bringing them around. I never quite make a full circle, they're like little half circles. And I just keep going around. Looks like a rose that really is full and it blossomed up. So there's one flower, and maybe I want to put a little leaf over here coming out the side. So remember, anytime you go over anything, those little lines that you go over get erased. And I think I'm going to put another leaf down here. Now I'm going to create just sort of like a traditional flower. So I'm going to create the center and just create my flower petals. I'm going to have that one kind of tucked behind there. Maybe I'll make the same type of flower up here. And then maybe I'll put another rose over here. So again with the round center, and then just these lines that kind of go around. If you have your own style that you want to create, you're more than welcome to put that on there. So I also want to create some lines that come down with the vine. So I'm just going to add a little wavy line here and add some leaves. And I'm going to create another vine on the side. Again, little wavy line that comes down. I just kind of double that up. And then I just add all my leaves on there. Maybe I'll just add another little leaf up here. Okay, so make sure that anything that you went over, that you go back in and you just erase that line. So that way when you outline, you won't be confused as to which lines get outlined and which ones get erased. The next part to our sketching is creating the horizon line, which is what we see when we look out the window. So the horizon line separates the sky and the water, and we're going to make that going right across. So you're going to need your pencil and your ruler for that. You decide how much sky and how much water you want. You can do half and half or move it up a little bit. I'm just going to put my ruler here, and it's just a straight line that goes right across. So again, nice and light, because we're going to outline that. So that's our horizon line separating the sky and the water. And now we're also going to add some clouds. So very simple cloud shapes. I'm going to add 2. So start with a curve line, then another little curve line, come around, maybe a little one here, a little bit longer up here, another curve, and then connect it there. That's our first cloud. And then our second one we can just put over here, same thing, curve line, curve, smaller curves, maybe a bigger one there, and comes around. So we have our clouds and we have our horizon line. The next part is creating the sailboat that is going to be floating in the water. In Matisse's original painting, he had many sailboats floating in the water. However, when I created my sample, I just did one. So I'm going to show you how to create the sailboat. If you want to make more than one, you're more than welcome to. First, we're going to start off with the bottom of the boat. So you're going to draw a straight line that goes across. Remember, nice and light in case you have to erase. And then you're going to curve the bottom. And it's going to go up to the other side. It can even come out to a little bit of like a point over here. Then we're going to make a long line. This is what's going to hold our sail. So this comes down. And you're going to do another line right next to it. So I know when I go to the erasing, I'm going to have to erase that little line there. Now we're going to do the sails, which are kind of like triangle shapes, but I'm going to put a little curve on mine. So I'm going to come down and kind of go out and down. And then I'm going to connect that in. And then on this side, I'll bring this one down a little bit more narrow. And again, attach it. Now at the top, you can put a little triangle, like a little flag at the top. And a little round circle. And now we have our completed sailboat. The next part that we need to create are the side windows, just like Matisse has in his painting. So when we create those, they're not going to be perfect squares or rectangles. I'm going to show you how to draw them so that it gives it the right perspective for our project. So we're going to start with the top one. And for the top window, Again, we don't have to measure, we're just using this to get that straight edge. The top part of that window is going to be on a slight diagonal, so it's going to go down a little bit. So you're going to take your ruler and just create that line that comes down. Then the lines on either side are going to be straight. So we're going to do a straight line here, and then a straight line over here. And that's going to get connected with a straight line across. So that's window number 1. Window number 2 is going to have a straight line for the top. So I'm going to do that one right here. This line is going to come down, and it's going to be a little bit longer than the one on this side. So this one's going to be longer. Bring this one over here, it's going to be a little bit shorter. And then we're going to connect those two. So we're going to go from here to here with a diagonal line. Again, we don't worry that one window is maybe a little bigger than the other. Matisse wasn't worried about things being precise or exact. And then our last window at the bottom is going to have 2 diagonal lines. So the top one, it's following the same direction as that one. So that's going to go across. And then we're just going to move our ruler down. We're just going to follow that same line. Call those parallel lines. They run in the same direction. And then you're just going to connect those. One there. And one over here. And now you have your 3 windows on the left side. So now we're ready for the windows on the right side. So take your ruler. So for this top line, it's going to go the opposite way. So it's going to go up that way. So you're going to take your pencil, sketch that line, and it's going to come down 2 lines on the side. And the bottom part of that is going to go straight across. Okay, for the middle window, that line is going to go straight across. This line's going to come down straight. And this line's going to come down straight, but this one's going to be a little bit longer. So to right about there, so it's a little bit longer. And now I'm going to go from this point to this point on that diagonal line. Okay, so that's our middle window. And then our bottom window is going to follow that same line. So on a diagonal. Move your ruler down a little bit. It's going to follow the same direction. Remember, parallel. And then you're just going to connect it. And now we have our 3 windows on that side. The next part is outlining all of your pencil lines with black Sharpie. So grab your black Sharpie marker or your black permanent marker, and you're going to outline all of your pencil lines. And the outlining is really going to define the shape of all of our different things that we made. So just take your time, go around all of your pencil lines, and then I'll check back with you for the next part. So now that your outlining is complete and you've erased any remaining pencil lines, our next part is coloring, and we're going to use oil pastels for this part. If you don't have oil pastels, you can use crayons. Oil pastels or crayons can be blended, and we want to achieve the same look of oil paint as Matisse did in his painting. So we're going to work from the inside out, and remember, if you have a napkin or a paper towel, keep that off to the side as it's helpful in case you need to clean your oil pastels as you work. So think about the colors that you want to include in your sky and how those colors will be reflected on the water. I'm going to use some of these fluorescent pinks and oranges and a little bit of the sky blue, and I'm going to blend them into the sky and then a reflection on the water. Again, if you don't have oil pastels, you can use crayons for this part. So to get started, I'm just going to start putting my colors on here. And we don't have to color the entire area in because we are going to also use watercolor paint and achieve that mixed media that I was talking about earlier. And when we combine the oil pastels with the watercolor paint, it's going to give us the same illusion as the oil paint that Matisse used in his painting. So I'm just trying to fill in a little bit of color around here in the sky. It's kind of like when the day is ending and that little bit of pink comes into the sky. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of this nice fluorescent color. Again, I'm not worrying about getting every single spot because I can fill in with a little bit of watercolor paint. But what I can also do is blend with a little bit of white. That will blend some of those colors together on there. So I'm using the white to blend in some of those colors. I'm going to use a little bit of white in my clouds. And maybe go around with a little bit of blue, highlighting on there. Might even want to go in and just put a little bit of this color in there just to get a little reflection on there. And now I'm going to concentrate on the water. So the colors that are in the sky are going to be reflected in the water as well. I'm going to start off with this blue color. Again, nice big broad strokes for this bigger area. Take some of the pink that was in the sky, just kind of have that reflecting in the water. And maybe even include a little bit of this color, the fluorescent. You decide what colors you want to use and how you want your sky and your water to look. Maybe I'm going to use a little bit of this darker blue. So I'm going to take my time finishing up my sky and my water, and then we're going to move on to the next part. So now that our sky and water is complete, we're going to focus on the sailboat and the flower pot. Again, think about the colors that you want to use. If it's difficult for you to color in the small areas with your oil pastels, you may want to use crayons, colored pencils, or twistables like I have here, as they will give you a better opportunity to thoroughly color in those little small areas. We're not going to use watercolor paint in these two sections, so color both the sailboat, the flower pot, and the flowers in entirely. So to get started, I am going to use my oil pastel. I'm going to use this orange color on the sail. But again, you have to decide if you want to use the oil pastels or your crayons. Some of these like little tiny spots are going to be hard for me to do with an oil pastel. So I'm going to use probably my twistable. And when I think about the colors I want to use, I want to choose colors that are different from the water because I don't want the sailboat or even the flowers to blend in with that background. And we have to think about Henry Matisse, in that he was known as the king of color, and he liked to use a lot of bright colors in his artwork. So for this little small flag up here, I'm going to color that in with my twistable. So take your time coloring your sailboat in and your flowers in the flower pot, and then we're going to move on to the next part. Now that our sailboat and our flower pot is complete, we're going to focus on the window frame and the windows on the side. So in Matisse's painting, he liked to use a lot of color, a lot of bright colors, and often he would use colors that were opposite on the color wheel. And when you do that, the colors really pop. So in my sample that I did, that's completed, I did a dark green color that went around the big window, and then a lot of these pinks and reds on the side. Green and red are opposites on the color wheel, and they make those colors really pop out. But it's up to you to decide what colors you want those to be. You can keep it all the same color, but I think I'm going to choose one color around here and then different colors for the side windows. So to get started, I'm going to take my oil pastel, and we are going to be adding watercolor paint to this section. So we're just applying some loose color just to add some details. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to add some on the sides and even a little bit at the bottom. Again, it's very, very loose because we are going to fill in with a lot of watercolor paint as well. Come up here on the sides. Now I'm just going to go back in with a little bit darker green color, and I'm going to blend that. Again, I'm not covering up all the white because I'm going to add watercolor paint in there, but just to add a little bit of contrast, get a little bit of value in the dark and light on here. Now this last green color, I'm going to add just this little bit darker one. Just going to blend that in. Oil pastels are so fun because you can layer them and blend them in. Again, leave white because we want to use our watercolor in some of those sections. And when we add that watercolor, it's going to really make it look like oil paint. I'm just adding a little bit of this darker color. And leaving some of the white so that I'll have spaces to paint in when we do the watercolor. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the side windows. I've picked out my colors. I'm going to use some of these pink fluorescents and purple and a lighter purple, and I'm going to start applying those on again, same way, just going around the windows in a very, very loose fashion. This is the first color that I'm putting on. And then I'm going to go back and blend some of my other colors in there. Okay, so that's the first color. I'm going to do this like magenta color with it. Remember, oil pastels, you can blend right on top as well. Again, don't color the whole thing, and especially if you're using more than one color, you want to give yourself the opportunity to add that color in there. I'll do a little bit on this side. And then a little bit down here. Okay, and I'm going to use a little bit of this lighter lavender color. That looks really nice with the other colors that I have there. It's really gonna pop when I add that watercolor on top. So remember, you can always use white, and you can do a little white in some sections just to blend it in, or you can leave it as it is. I'm just going back in, just putting a little bit of white in there. Just some sections I want them to be a little bit more blended. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm taking this darker purple color and I'm just going to go around the windows just so that they stand out. Remember, it's a quick stroke. It doesn't have to be so precise. We want to look just like Matisse's painting. And then I'm going to do a little bit on this side. And now we're ready for the next part. Okay, so our last part with the oil pastels is adding some reflection color into the side windows. So we're going to be using oil pastels or crayons with a combination of watercolor paint. And what you want to do is choose colors inside of the windows that will pick up all of the colors that we see here. So the windows are reflecting the colors that we see in the sky, the sailboat, the water, and the flowers. And you're just going to apply those very, very loosely into those windows. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this color. And maybe add just a little bit of the sky. Not coloring the whole thing in, just so it would look like if it was a reflection. And then I'm going to go back over it with a little bit of white just to blend that in. Okay, maybe in this window, the second one, I'm just going to do a little bit of the water. I just want this to look like reflection of colors. Okay, then down here, maybe I want a little bit of my flower pot reflection, so a little bit of this brown. Put some other little colors in here. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. We just want to pick up some of the colors that we see. Blend that with the white. So take your time, add some color with either your oil pastels or your crayons into your 6 windows, and then we're going to move on to the watercoloring. So now that all of our oil pastel is complete and all our coloring is done, the next fun part is adding watercolor paint to create this watercolor resist. It's going to help us fill in all of the white spots, and it's going to give us the illusion of oil paint just like in Henri Matisse's open window painting. So what you're going to do is look at your artwork and see wherever you have any white spots that you can fill in with the watercolor paint, and you're going to match it up to whatever oil pastel color you used. So I'm going to start with mine and dip into my water. And get my paint on my brush. And what's nice about the watercolors, you can go right over your crayon or your oil pastel, and it's going to fill in wherever it sees white. So I'm going to match up the color here and just color this all in. Now, if I want to, I could introduce another color, like maybe just put in a little bit of this blue, kind of blend that in with the green. And that gives it a nice color as well. And then I'm just going to take my time and paint this whole frame all the way around. And don't forget that you have to do at the bottom as well. So now that our window frame is complete with the watercolor paint, we're going to concentrate on the sky and the water. So look to see what color matches up to the oil pastels that you used. I'm going to choose this little bit lighter blue color that I have. And I don't have a lot of white spots in my sky, but again, I can just paint right over the oil pastel. And you can see what happens, kind of beads up in the spots where there is oil pastel. That will dry. And I'm just going to come around here and just fill in wherever there isn't any oil pastel. I'm going to leave my clouds white. It's just a really fun and cool technique to do. And when it dries, I just love it. It looks just like oil paint. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into the water. Water, I might just use like a little bit darker blue. Again, just fill up those white spots. And a little bit of paint with the water on your brush goes a long way. You don't need a lot in this. So just carefully get that into all the little spots that you see. And I'm even getting into these little spots around the flowers. So it gives it the illusion that the water's kind of poking through in that section. The next section that we're going to add watercolor paint to are the side windows, the frame that goes around both of these side windows. So again, look to see what color you did, match it up to the watercolor paint. Mine's sort of like this magenta color, so I'm going to go in and choose this. I can also blend that with a little bit of purple. And I'm just going to add that in. Take your time. Remember, you can always add a little bit more water and just really spread that out. Clean my brush. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that darker purple color with it. So take your time and paint around all of the windows, and then our last part is going to be the reflection in the windows. So the last spot that we're going to add watercolor paint to are the side windows. We don't need a lot of color in those areas. We just want it to look like a little bit of a reflection of color. So what I do is I take my brush with just water on it, and I just put water on top. And then I just choose the color that I want to add, just a tiny little bit. And I just kind of spread that out. Just to give it a little hint of color. gonna do the same thing to the second window. Just get a little water on there. Maybe in this window I'm just gonna do a little bit of orange. So again, just a little bit on my brush and just kind of blend that in. So take your time completing the painting on all 6 windows, and then we're going to move on to the final part. So our last part to creating our summer window is creating the vines using colored green paper. So get your green paper, your scissors, and your glue stick. And what we're trying to do is copy the vines and the leaves that were outside of the window that Henry Matisse painted. We're going to use colored paper and we're going to cut it out, and we're going to create ours going around the border of the window. So whatever green paper you have, you're going to use. And I'm just going to choose my little bit darker colored one. So the first couple of lines that we're going to cut are longer wavy lines. If you want to sketch those in pencil first, you can, but I'm just going to cut mine out. I want them to be nice and long. I'm just going to leave a little space and cut right next to it. And once I have it cut out, I can measure to see if it fits onto the top part of my paper. This one's going to be going across. So this one is a little bit long, so I know I have to trim it right about there. It's okay if it hangs over a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is cut out the leaves. Now the leaves you can sketch in pencil first if it's easier. Always think about a simple leaf shape as being a sad face connected to a smiley face. So you can make a bunch of those on your paper and fill that up, and you're going to cut those out. And if you have more than one green color paper, I would definitely use it because it adds some detail and interest to your work. So get together your paper supplies and cut out your vines and the leaves, and then we're going to go on to gluing. So now that I have my vines cut out and my leaves, I'm going to glue them down. If you have a glue stick, you can use that. Even Elmer's glue will work. So I'm just going to flip this over and add glue to the back. And then I'm just going to press this at the top. I always think it's easier to start with the top one first. Just get that put in there. A little trick to when you're using a glue stick, you can always use the cap like an iron and press that down so you don't have to get your finger too sticky. Just get that on there. Now I'm going to do the side ones. And put this one over here so it's attached and coming down. Again, I'm going to use my cap. And then the last one on this side. Again, use that cap and press that on. And now I can start adding my leaves onto the vines. So I chose 3 different color green papers to cut from, and I like the variety. I think it adds some interest into the artwork. So now I'm going to glue those on. So of course, just put glue on the back of your leaves and just start putting them on. You can have some going down. If you have room without hanging off the paper, you can have some going up. A little bit smaller one here. Just press that on. So take your time filling up your leaves, going around the vine, and then I will check back with you. I love our version of Henry Matisse's open window, and I think our summer windows are full of fun, bright colors, just like a summer day. I hope you enjoyed learning about Henry Matisse and using different art materials to create your own open window. Until next time, keep smiling, keep dreaming, and keep creating.